concert band Lyrical Etude, I would absolutely start this at a much slower tempo than what is written, and do it without the grace notes so that you can understand what the underlying rhythm is within this. This is particularly critical in measure 5 because of the fact that those grace notes kind of easily get in the way of the 16ths. You want to make sure that they're not obscuring the rhythm at all. Also, in bar 5, do not breathe in that 16th note rest. Just keep your embouchure on the reed, keep it set. But I would work on playing this without the grace notes first, so you have that stable rhythm. So if we're looking at the end of bar 3, to understand what the core is, and then you can add them back in. And that way they don't feel quite as difficult right at first. So the trill in bar 9. Now, this is a trill and a 16th note. We also have a grace note. Do not worry about getting too many revolutions of the trill. If you only get 1, that's fine. If you get 2, that's fine. And again, if you take this at a slightly slower tempo, you'll be able to do more trills. But I would start this, again, without any trill whatsoever. Then I would put the grace note in. Now the grace note can go before the beat here. Right, so I'd work on that. Then I would work on the trill itself. And for this particular instance, I recommend using the trill I've notated here, where you don't have any fingers down, but you trill the A key with your left thumb. And so I would work on, by itself it doesn't sound great, but again, that's why it's not a real fingering, it's a trill fingering, and we're gonna add more to this. So then doing a couple of those trills and adding in the next E and F. And doing that a whole bunch of times, and then gradually putting it all back together. But it's really important throughout the process to go back to these layers. So even when you feel like you can sort of get the grace notes, play it without the grace notes to make sure that that foundational rhythm hasn't changed. And again, these trills, it can just be 1 revolution, 1 extra note above. It doesn't have to be super big or fancy. The important part is making sure that we have good flow and consistent rhythm. For the concert band technical etude, really important to work on this with the metronome on 8th notes. Again, don't start right at 1:30, just take it at a much slower tempo to begin with to make sure that you have accurate notes. This etude has a lot of accidentals in it, so just make sure that you're playing the right notes in each measure. But in addition to that, there are a lot of specific articulations, and something that I find tricky about this etude is that oftentimes the articulations change even though the notes are similar. So for instance, in bar 14, we have this descending line, and then in 16 we have the same thing, but the articulation changes. So I think it's really easy to just kind of play it by ear and miss that detail. So be careful, make sure that the tongues and slurs are happening in the right places. Bar 26, the first 2 notes of that bar are a change in the interval. You've had this lovely scale finally for a little bit, and then we have this, third thrown in there, so just be aware of that. And then in bar 8, for that low C, just make sure that you come further back on the reed so your embouchure is closer to the tip of the reed, and use a very open vowel, a very low O, so that we can get that low C to speak effectively.